If you could pick between these two options to make you happier, which would you choose? Winning a $20 million lottery or receiving an extreme injury that would dramatically change your life forever? Tough one, right? I'm just curious, show of hands, who would pick the life-changing injury? Yeah? Who would pick the 20 mil? Every hand goes like all of it. Yeah, if you're actually that lucky to get it. I mean, just think of what you could do with that. You can pay all of your student loans off. Even the adults in the room who are still working through that, you can pay off your house, you can get the new car, you can tithe 10% of that to your local church. Just saying, hint, hint. You can get all of, like literally, it would change your life. All of your hopes and dreams could be fulfilled with $20 million. And then you consider, the opposite option, a life-altering injury, like it is a no-brainer. But what if I told you it is scientifically proven that the major life-changing injury would grant you longer-lasting happiness than winning $20 million? Intrigued? Well, here's the reality. Every single one of us in this room, if you consider yourself a human being, values happiness. We love to be happy. Who likes to be sad, other than Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh? It's just a perpetual cloud of darkness, right? I mean, God created happiness for a reason. We love to be happy, especially when everything is awesome and everything goes exactly the way we want and we receive all the things. We love feeling good. I mean, and this is so central, not just to our lives, but to our culture, that the preamble to our own Constitution as a nation literally says this: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Founding Fathers set out to create a country based on this political philosophy that promotes individual liberty, self-reliance, and independence. That it is ultimately up to you as the individual to rule your life, and that the government especially should not get in the way of you running your life. And they claimed that our pursuit of happiness is a right that our Creator, God Himself, gives you. And that's true to an extent. See, the guys who claim that our Creator gives us the right to pursue happiness basically believed you should live on this principle that you run your own life. Your pursuit of happiness is done by yourself on your own means without someone else dictating how your life ought to go. And here's the thing. That is a great political ideology. It's a hard word. That's a great political ideology, and it makes for a wonderful country, but it makes for terrible Christianity. Here's where our Christian convictions and cultural values collide. Our founding fathers say the pursuit of happiness is a right, but our Heavenly Father says the pursuit of happiness is meaningless. So we're going to be reading from Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. Okay, so if you have a Bible, you can turn over there to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. Otherwise, if you are in need of a Bible, just raise your hand. Someone will come around and throw a Bible at you if you need one. This is one of they won't literally throw it. They will toss it nicely, if anything. If you don't have a Bible of your own, please keep this. This is our gift to you. Just raise your hand. Portia will come around with those. We're on page 325 in those Bibles if you are reading along. But as you're getting there, let me give you some context. There's this guy in Scripture named King Solomon, and he is touted to be the wisest man to ever live in history outside of Jesus. One night, God comes to him in a dream, and he says, I will give you whatever you wish, name it, and it's yours. And instead of choosing wealth or fame or prestige, Solomon gives the ultimate Jesus juke and says, I want wisdom. He says, goody two-shoes. He chooses wisdom. And God is so pleased with his answer, he gives him the wisdom of following the way of God, and he is blessed so much because of this, he ultimately receives all the riches and fame and prestige that he didn't want. his wisdom ultimately brought all those things because he lived life God's way. But here's the great irony of Solomon's life, is that his wisdom brought forth riches and fame, and he got so caught up in the riches and fame that he lost sight of the wisdom that gave him the riches and fame in the first place. Towards the end of his life, it's believed Solomon writes this book of Ecclesiastes to reflect on everything he learned from just his crazy life. So I want us just to check out what King Solomon, wisest man to walk this earth second to Jesus, says about himself in chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found that this too was meaningless. So I said, laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. And while still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life in this world. I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. So I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. So I want to pause there just to set the record straight. Okay, let me just sum up everything that we just read. So Solomon has a lot of fun and he laughs a lot, but for some reason he finds this pointless and he gets depressed. So, he does what many people does and went to the bar and just started drinking lots of wine to cheer himself up. And he decides to pursue the happiness that most people try to experience in this life. In the pursuit of his happiness, here's what he does. He builds a huge home. He owns his own orchards, basically, builds man-made lakes and water systems to fulfill and serve those groves and those orchards. He has slaves and servants to do whatever he wants. He raises more livestock than any West River rancher could imagine. He makes a stupid amount of money. He has his own band perform for him. He has many concubines, which means he could have endless amounts of sex whenever he wanted. He has prestige as the greatest person to have lived in Jerusalem. And the kicker is he even enjoyed his work, right? A lot of us don't even have that pleasure. He seems like he was pursuing happiness to the T. Here's what he concludes in verse 11. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless, like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. Man, what a buzzkill, right? The pursuit of happiness is meaningless. It's just you run and you get nowhere. And that whole idea of just like happiness being this meaningless pursuit, it kind of reminds me of a hamster running on a hamster wheel. You know what I'm talking about? Fun fact about me, hamsters are my favorite rodent, right? When I was in 4th grade, I actually had a rodent named Chuckles was his name. My hamster was named Chuckles. It's like the perfect hamster name. I love this thing. I loved rodents, especially, anybody ever heard of the hamster dance? It was my jam in elementary school. Look it up on Spotify later. You'll thank me, okay? But one of my favorite things about hamsters, or really any rodent, is when they get on these little hamster wheels and they just run their little legs off these things. If you want to be entertained later, hop on YouTube and just search for hamster wheel fails. It's awesome. It'll keep you entertained for hours. So they just get on these things and they run and they run and they run and they keep going. They just burn the little hearts out while staying completely in place. They just keep going, thinking that perhaps they're going to get somewhere. They feel so boxed in their cage, they can't run anywhere else, so they just stay in place until eventually, they run so fast, and some of what these videos show is they get caught up in the speed of what they're chasing that they then, like literally, their whole body is propelled around this thing until it slows down enough for them to fall and crash land and probably hurt themselves. It's a funny image. But the endless pursuit of running in place, never arriving where you want to go until you trip and the velocity of the wheel takes you with it, spinning you into a circle of chaos as you try to run after these pursuits that just never satisfy you. Pursuing happiness is just like a hamster wheel. An endless pursuit of arriving nowhere. You pursue something that makes you happy, like a new job, and then you get it, and everything is awesome because you're out of that new place. But then after some time, maybe a couple weeks, months, years, you're like, wow, this is kind of a drag. Wow, I'm right back where I was. So maybe the new house will make things better, right? So you get the new house and all that's awesome, but then eventually the freshness wears off and you start finding all these other issues with it, right? And so then you get the new phone, or you go and you get Chipotle and it changes your life. It's my favorite for those who don't know. But then you're just left wanting more, Nothing seems to satisfy us. You finally get the thing you think will make you so happy. Then after a time, you're just kind of back to where you were. It's as if it just never seems to arrive. So I just remind us again of what Solomon says in verse 11. As I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless, like chasing the wind. To phrase it in another way, if pursuing happiness is our life's ambition, we're no better off than a zealous rodent. Because surely there's more to it than just running in place. See, it's out of our discontent that we kind of throw in this mantra that just dictates our society that's simply phrased like this: as long as you're happy, right? As long as you're happy, do it. YOLO, live your life. You do you, man. As long as you're happy, who am I to question your choices? And we are so adamant that we can just use happiness as a means to justify everything we do, even if it's not the right thing for us to do, and even if the thing is damaging in the long run. You see, what's so interesting, the irony of the as long as you're happy philosophy is that you'll never be happy for long. As long as you're happy, if you live by that philosophy, it's only a matter of time until you're not. So why is it that the things we pursue for happiness just don't make us happy forever? Why is it just such a meaningless pursuit of the wind? Why does Solomon give us this truth that just seems to resonate so much with us? Well, it's interesting because moral psychology and understanding how our brains work gives us a lot of language to understand why this happens, okay? So I want to introduce a phenomenon to you called the adaptation principle, okay? The adaptation principle. This just means that all of us adapt to whatever changes happen to us. It's a survival mechanism, essentially. No matter how big or small the changes in your life are, your brain is hardwired to adapt to the new change until it becomes the normal state of life. Hence, the eventual discontentment with whatever we receive. That's why the newness and the freshness wears off. So here's what this means. Our brains like life changes more than a normal, mundane state of life. And there are some of you who are so content to just kind of coast and just keep things easy peasy and never change. There are some of you who just you love sitting in the same seat every single day for class or at work. I don't understand you people. I want to mix it up every day, right? But even those of you who love having kind of just a mundane, normal day-to-day life, you still like getting some new things every day. It's why you don't eat the same meals every single day, right? We love all of these subtle changes. So then you imagine any other major change, whether it's the latest phone or the latest gadget or the thing you think will make us happy, we want that change because we need to mix it up in our life. Well, here's often how we picture our happiness working. All right, let's go ahead and throw up this first graph. I drew all these graphs with my spare hand, so not my spare hand as if I have an extra one. I don't know why I said that. I don't know. Oh, I do this for a living. Awesome. My own hand. I drew this with my own hand. And we often think our happiness works like the stock market. We constantly want to go up and to the right. We get the new thing we love, sweet, that's a spike up. Something bad happens, had a rough day at work, it goes down. But your ultimate trajectory is work up and to the right. So everything should ideally, your life should just always feel like it's getting better and better and better all the time. Your happiness always grows. But the problem is, that's not how our happiness works. Rather, this is the graph that better depicts how our happiness works, okay? It's a sideways T. So if you look at the y-axis, all right, you have positive things that happen to you, right, that give you great happiness, but then you also have negative things that happen to you that obviously make you pretty sad. But then the straight line in the middle, right, the x-axis over time is the normal state of a functioning life. It's the normal, average, mundane, day-to-day life that we all know and love, or perhaps yearn to get out of, okay? So imagine you win the $20 million from the lottery. Boom! Your happiness spikes. All of your dreams come true. You can do all the things with it, right? And your life is changed forever. Generational wealth. You can get a whole new wardrobe. You invest it all. You get the flying car that you've always wanted. You know, I just started watching a Mr. Beast video that talks about, you know, all this crazy high-tech stuff. It's insane. You can get all that yourself, okay? $20 million. But notice then what happens. Over time, your brain starts to adapt. Let's go to the next one. So over time, you get used to the brand new car. You get used to the brand new home. And instead of your happiness continuing on like the stock market, it actually just adjusts as the new state of life. And so over time, you're actually more likely to grow discontent with all the new things you have because you have a whole new standard of living now. Your brain has adapted. Your brain has adapted. So now imagine you receive a life-altering injury. Okay, let's go to the next one. Life-altering injury, life-altering injury, or any tragedy for that matter. You know, the loss of a loved one unexpectedly, financial constraints. You know, for me, like I shared a lot about this last week. If you haven't listened to last week's sermon from my time away from my sabbatical, like it was a major dip for me because I crash landed into my sabbatical hard with a bunch of burnout symptoms that I had to really work hard to recover. It was a crash landing for sure. And here's the problem with these dips is that we can't stand these dips. Because we want to be happy and our brains want to feel better, what often happens is it's in those seasons with the life-altering dips that we turn to things that we think will make us feel better, like the drugs, the alcohol, hanging out with the wrong people, pornography, eating too much, that we think will make us feel good, but actually just brings us shame and it only continues us in a downward spiral. Because we just can't stand being sad, let alone knowing how to navigate these tragedies. That's why these times are so dangerous. But here's the thing. Your brain and your soul don't differentiate between the spikes and the dips of what your life circumstance is. What it knows is there's something good and there's something bad, and it craves for the progress of the good things that help you move up and to the right, regardless of what happens. So look at this. After your life-altering injury, you got nowhere else to go but up, right? Let's go to that next graph. Look at that. Yeah, maybe you have to stay in the hospital for a long time, but eventually you get moved from the hospital bed back to your normal bed. And then you go from your normal bed to a wheelchair. You start eating normally again. You start going to physical therapy and you're relearning how to walk. You're slowly putting the pieces of your life together. And every single little step of progress you're making, that's a boost of dopamine to your life situation. You're continually adapting. You're continually getting better. You're continually making progress towards a renewed state of life. Not to mention all the life lessons that God is teaching to you spiritually during this time. It's why so often hardships are our greatest teachers, right? And before you know it, you end right back up there at the exact same place, even after winning the $20 million. And so look at this. So now for this last graph, let's put them back together, okay? Technically, that's how your life-altering injury makes you happier in the long run, when you stack them up next to each other. And I'm not trying to glorify your hardships, saying, good for you that this thing happened. No. But perhaps seeing this perspective can shed a little bit of light on why God might rather form you into a better follower of Jesus through hardship than giving you everything that you wish. Right? And friends, I will be the first one to tell you, I hate that. I hate that. But the pursuit of happiness, the whole point of this is that happiness isn't found in achievement, but progression. Have you noticed, actually, this is true when you graduate college or when you work on any project for work? Your greater sense of fulfillment is actually in the pursuit, in the journey towards the achievement, not actually achieving it. It's why you kind of feel lost after you finally graduate. You're like, I've been working so long on this thing. Now what do I do? It's because we find purpose in the pursuit. So here's what this means. The pursuit of happiness is meaningless because happiness is found in the pursuit. It's not like you're trying to arrive at an achievement as a destination for happiness, but rather any journey you're navigating through is how we get there. So that begs a question. Is there something we could fully pursue that we'll never fully achieve that will grant us the fullest happiness that we've always wanted? There is. And it's called the pursuit of holiness. The pursuit of holiness. Perhaps one of the most startling phrases that Jesus ever utters in his teachings was when he tells his disciples in Matthew 5:48, but you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Or more literally, be holy as your heavenly Father is holy. Now, a lot of us have different interpretations of what it means to be holy. For some of us, you might think, oh, that person's holy. They must just have a moral superiority over me, or they're just a goody two-shoes or something. Like, we have a hard time wrestling with people who claim to be holy. But holiness isn't like a character trait of your personality. First of all, we need to start exactly with what holiness means and how God is. Perhaps there is no better substantive word that comprehensively sums up God's character than his holiness. It strictly means holiness, in its simplest terms, is to be set apart, to be other than, to be distinct from the rest. So if you want to talk about a being who is distinct from everything else, look no further than God, who is glorious. He's majestic. His personality, love, and goodness, his sense of justice and selflessness, his peace, his joy, his sense of sovereignty and power is so much greater than anything we can imagine. So Jesus is telling us to be that? That makes no sense. Well, it's because we have our definition of what holiness is wrong. Holiness isn't a goal you achieve. It's a God you pursue, okay? Holiness isn't a characteristic of I'm feeling happy today or I'm feeling extra holy today. No. Holiness is a lifestyle choice of pursuing God above all things. Pursuing God, who is our central sense of joy, as the definition and purpose for our life. It never ends. I love how John N. Oswalt says this in his book called To Be Holy. To have a perfect heart, or to be holy toward God, is to obey his covenant stipulations. It's to make him the absolute Lord of our lives, to submit to his will, to call sin what he calls sin, to call righteousness what he calls righteousness, and to view people as he views people. Being wholeheartedly God's has much less to do with how we feel about God than it does with letting him slash out of our lives everything which stands as a rival to him, so that he can fill our lives with himself and transform the very way we imagine reality. That's what it means to be holy. It's not moral superiority. It's just complete submission to the Lord of the universe, pursuing his ways and asking him, Lord, reveal in me things you're discontent with so I can learn the way everlasting, so I can grow in your ways. The entire pursuit of holiness is a constant journey of progression in Christ-likeness, just like the progress principle. So, last pithy statement, because clearly it's true because it's on the screen, is this. The greatest path to happiness is not what you achieve, but who you become by God's grace. It's who you become by God's grace. You know, as soon as you arrive somewhere in your faith journey, you think you had it great, stuff is awesome, you're in Scripture more than ever before, you feel like you haven't cussed in months, you know, or you've gone free from this thing or that thing, or you're doing all these awesome things, you're serving in church, or you're tithing, you're doing all the things, and you're like, man, this is great. But then eventually you hit a wall in your faith. Or somebody or a professor or a peer or a coworker brings up controversial opinions that causes you to reel and question everything, and then it all falls apart, it feels like. But the whole point isn't necessarily what all we're doing, but it's who we're pursuing. So even in those hardships, right, the whole goal is to take that next step, to progress towards who is God wanting you to be. Because if you're pursuing God, at the end of the day, he is our fulfillment. That doesn't mean you're going to have only perfect, happy days moving forward. But perhaps even in the hardest of days and the life-altering moments, you can still find God's good purpose in it, because at the end of the day, your pursuit of happiness isn't the just of your life. It's the pursuit of God. It gives us purpose for our pain. So what seems like a step backwards in our happiness can actually be the greatest step forward in our holiness. And so just to remind you, you know, I share a lot about just my experience with my sabbatical last week in that sermon. So you can hop on our podcast or YouTube, rewatch it if you want to hear the depths of it. But as I sank to like one of the lowest moments of my life, crash landing into that time off, I've come out on the other side with a whole new perspective of just how to live and orient my life, friends. And so what felt like a major step backwards was major steps forwards in other ways. And sometimes it's hard to see in the moment when you're going through the thick of it. But sometimes time just gives us all the perspective we need, where we can then go back and we can sing songs. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. Because he's proven himself. And you might not fully see it until who knows when. But we can rest in that truth. Amen? So I'll invite our worship team back up as we conclude with 2 more songs. But just as we do so, what do you need from God this afternoon or from this morning? Like, do you just need to spend some time just letting him have it? Do you need to stay seated, or do you need to turn your chair into an altar, come up here? Do you need to stand? Do you need to find a corner and just sit on the floor and bask in God's presence of just trying to seek purpose for what's going on right now? Something you're seeking to give you happiness, it's ultimately unfulfilling, and you just need to reorient your life. I don't know what you need in light of your pursuits. But all that to say, if you surrender your pursuit of happiness to the Lord and surrender yourself to the grace and truth that Jesus brings, you'll find a fulfillment that perhaps nothing else can ever compare. That certainly leaves happiness dead in its tracks.